Hey everyone, and welcome to A Balanced Life with Dr. Jacquie. I am so thrilled about today's topic and the conversation that we're going to be having today with some amazing leaders and people who are going to teach us what it means and how to level up. Today we are joined by Corey Briscoe, Stacey Owens, Dr. Tierney, and Dr. Jennifer Bishop. This show today is one that I have been waiting for. Oftentimes we get into a space of not really knowing how to do what it is we need to do, or there are times that we may find ourselves becoming stagnant. We get rote in a routine and don't really know how to get ourselves out of it. As you can see, I might be a little tongue tied today because I am so excited, because even me at times needs to discover how to level up. I don't always bring my A game. I know that may be surprising to some of you, but there are days that I'm in the B zone and I need to get back to my A zone. Welcome in, everyone. Hey, y'all.
Hey.
Oh my goodness. Let me just tell you, Corey's over there got that cheesy smile on his face. Corey, I cannot with you today. How have you been, sir?
I'm wonderful, Dr. J. Excited to be here.
Glad that you're here, Jennifer. It's so good to see you and have you with us today. And of course, Stacey and Dr. Tierney. So I'm just going to jump right in. We're talking about one of Dr. Tierney's favorite subjects. She even wrote a book about it. It's called Level Up. And she's probably going to be a little mad because I'm going to put her on the spot first. But as we think about everybody, just think about this for a moment. We're in this space. We are, moving right on into 2023. Here we are already at May. Like, what happened? Those other few months just flew by so fast. And, some of us started our year out knowing exactly where we were going and what we wanted to do. And we had a plan to get there. And we're in that upward trajectory. We know what we're doing. But there are some people who are kind of caught in that space of, I plateaued and I don't know what my life should look like these next few months and to get me to my end goals. So Dr. Tierney, in your work, Leveling Up, talk to us about what leveling up means and how do we establish a baseline first and then sort of take those next baby steps to get to where we need to be.
Absolutely. So excellent question. And the first thing I want to say out the gate is that leveling up is different for everybody. I think we fall into this trap, which often gets us stuck because we're looking at someone else's level up journey, what leveling up means to them. For some, it might be a business venture. For some, it might be a relationship situation, but it's different for everybody. So the first thing you have to do is define what leveling up means for you, and let's get out of this, whatever measuring stick we're using, to see whether or not we're leveling up enough, we went up enough levels. For some, it might be, I got out of the bed today and I showered and I'm actually working on my business today. That might be a level up step for someone else. For others, it might be, I'm getting married next week. And, that might be a level up step for them. Just because someone else's level up step is different from yours, that doesn't diminish your level up step. And nor does it make you it better or you a better person because you've leveled up this much, in accordance with whatever measuring stick that you're using. So the first thing you have to do is define what is level up to you. Where are you right now? What season are you in right now? And then from that place, that's where you then start to define, okay, what is my next step? What is the next thing that I need to be doing right now? Is it that I need to level down? And we can probably talk about that, more later, but sometimes it's that we have to take a beat. We have to take a step back in order to go forward. So first stop to say, okay, what does level up mean for me in this season of my life and where I am right now?
Thank you for sharing that information because, Corey, I hate to do this to you, but oftentimes I feel, and I don't know if other audience members or our guests feel this way, but when it comes to talking to men about their trajectory in life and how they level up and what they do, I would bet that it looks different than women because our goals, our nuances, our approaches are different. Can you talk to us about that? And what does it look like? And if you're giving coaching to men, how do you help them figure out what leveling up looks like? Because all of us are on a different journey.
Absolutely. And of course, I'm going to co-sign with Dr. T. I think the first thing is we've got to put some parameters and a definition around level up, right? Level up is to advance, right? And depending on who you are, your skill set, your life dynamics, your spiritual state, level up looks very differently, right? And I love what Dr. T said. Sometimes leveling up for someone that is coming out of grief, coming out of losing a job is, I got up today and I put on fresh clothes, right? Comparatively to someone that is, maybe you're in a career and you have everyone is rooting for you and you've got everything that you need to succeed, but you are honestly your biggest, stopgap, and you need to advance the ball, right? That's different. When I look at men particularly, and I look at other colleagues and where there's such a societal challenge, and specifically men of color, because of what society has already deemed where we are, right? And so it's hard to almost define what you imagine your future to be with a society that has already defined you, right? So you're in this state, if you will. You're in this manifestation of this is what they think I should be. This is how they have defined me. And it's hard for us to sit and define ourselves. There is the obligation of being protector and provider, maybe husband or wife or brother, and being the person that comes and shows up. And when you are leveling up in that aspect, sometimes we forget to level up in our own selves, right? Forgetting our own desires, our dreams, our aspirations. And to be honest and to be frank, there's such a dichotomy, specifically in minority communities, about the need to show up and be there for everyone else, right? To be present for everyone else. And so that's what you see a lot of the times. And when I have conversations with other brothers that can sit and pause and think, they have wild dreams of what they could imagine. They have wild wonders and visions, but sometimes we need the space to explore and to dream, and the safe space to even conceptualize what we could be. Dr. J?
You bring up a good point. And Corey, I'm going to ask you a second question, because you said conceptualize what it is you want to be. Life moves so fast. Priest, protector, provider, take care of everything for everybody. I don't want to be the male that's the slacker. I'm the person who made it out, so I'm doing it for everybody. How do you manage all of that while you're trying to level up? Because the pressure is real.
I put it like this, as a person of faith, right? As soon as I let go and let God, if we go to like some of them old songs, that's actually when I personally saw advancement, right? Mm-hmm. When I tell people the analogy all the time. If you give me something, if you give me a ball of sand, and the more I squeeze, sand just falls out. But actually, if I loosely hold, right, I could actually probably hold more sand. And so I have learned to show up and do what I'm supposed to do, and let the good Lord do the rest, right? There is something that you have to do. You know what you're capable of doing. You know where the Lord's trying to stretch you to go, and you've got to show up like that. But you also got to give people back their plate. I learned this year so much about giving people back their plate. Before I knew it, I was a server. I had everybody's plate in my hand, and my plate was barren, and my plate was struggling. And I said, you know what? Let me give people back their plates, and let me focus on what it is that I'm called. Let me deal with what I have. And my plate began to look full and blossom. And that didn't make me a bad person, right? And I think the psychology of I'm not doing everything, I'm not being all things for all people, is a danger in our society. The best way to put it is like this. When you're on the airplane, they say it simply: place your oxygen mask on yourself before placing it onto others.
That makes so much sense. Stacey, let me ask you a question. Corey just mentioned something. Oh Lord, I hope the audience heard it, because my ear got piqued and I was tuned in. He said something along the lines of relaxing your hand and loosening the grip. Talk to us, if you will. You are an educator, an author, a business owner, and sometimes you have to loosen your grip in order to be able to level up. Could you talk to us about that for a moment, about how do you design what leveling up looks like for you?
Yes, Corey is absolutely correct. I know for me, loosening my hands look like not being in control of everything. Because I do so much in the spaces that I operate in, I have to trust and allow others to join in to help my vision come to fruition. And sometimes, when it's your baby and it's your thing that you're trying to birth, you'll grab onto that thing so tight, and because you think that no one else, can do it with you or for you. And so then what starts happening is you will start, losing control of the control that you think you have. So whenever I loosen my hands and allow myself to be surrounded by people who wanted to help with my vision and wanted to join in, it allowed me to be just that, the visionary. It allowed me to, play chess, and allowed me to move the parts, and the other players helped me with that process. So it made the process a lot easier. It didn't take away the struggles. It didn't take away those kind of things, but it did help it. In terms of what leveling up looks like for me, I think the hardest thing is you just have to know what it is that you want. Just like my colleague said, we know what we want in terms of what other people say to us. You allow someone to come and say, oh, Stacey, I think you should do this. And then I start thinking, should I? Maybe I should. Maybe so-and-so was right about this. And then it start confusing, my actual what it is that I want. I think that's what a lot of people struggle with. It's just staying true to knowing, what do you want? Oprah said that best. You starts with just saying, I want this. And then you just go after it with everything that you got.
Going after it with everything you got. That literally in itself sounds like a task that some people don't know how to grasp. I want to talk to Jennifer Bishop about this, because Jennifer, in the work that you do and how you provide training and development for individuals, you find people who are sometimes stuck in a rut, and you walk them through by faith. You walk them through by coaching. You walk them through in so many ways. How do people know when to reach out to get the assistance that they need in order to be able to level up?
I think that when you get to a place where you feel constricted and you don't know exactly how to get to the next steps, what I like to have a conversation with people about is to, one, realize what you have already done. Sometimes we focus on where we're trying to go, that we don't take the opportunity to grasp how much we have already overcome. So when we're trying to level up, I think we have to step back, because stepping back allows you to take a vantage point, a Monday morning quarterbacking of what you have already done, and embrace your successes. I think, as was said earlier, trials and tribulations are going to come, but you have to recognize that you already have the strength inside of you to overcome what has already been done, those successes. And I love the quote that Winston Churchill has said. He said, success is not final and failure is not fatal. We have to recognize that regardless of what we're doing, success is not final and failure is not fatal. So whether it had been a loss, well, I don't believe in lose. I believe in you learn and then you go on to win again. But you get that opportunity to continue on, and you get that strength, build a reservoir of strength from those prior successes, so that when it's time to go forward, you have the ability, you have the strength, and you have the village around you. One of the great class that I took when I was, my doctorate was on delegation. Build a village around you who can support your dream, as was just said, and allow them to partake in it so that you can go forward faster.
Go forward faster. There's so many things to unpack here. And when we come back after the break, let's talk about a few of those, because there are going to be times in your life where you have to figure out how to step back in order to step up. We'll be back in a moment after the break.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Welcome back, everyone, to A Balanced Life. And as you can tell, oftentimes being able to level up means really defining what does your journey look like. It also means bringing some people along with you who not only understand you and get you, but who also will tell you the truth. And what that looks like sometimes is saying you need to take a beat, a pause, you need to step back from things. And we don't like to hear those words because we get on a roll and we're in a groove and we're in our zone and we like to keep moving. But the reality is you do need to take a moment to step back and reflect, look at some of the benchmarks and goals, determine how you've made yourself, into who you've become today, and then say, can who I've become get me to where I want to go? Or what other things do I need to learn and discover about myself in order to go farther? Corey Briscoe, talk to us about that for a moment, because in business and in life, sometimes you do have to take a step back, and we do see that as a failure. We're like, I don't want to go backwards. I've come too far, but there's a beauty in being able to do that. Share with us, if you will.
Oh, I love this one. And I love it because as business owners and leaders, we're taught that if you aren't moving forward, if you aren't in the limelight, if you aren't on your necks, you aren't progressing. But sometimes you just need to sit your tail down somewhere. And I think that's the honest truth that we have to have, is sometimes the best advancement is me taking a moment and breathing. The best advances is me strategizing and rethinking and evaluating so that I can move forward thoughtfully. I remember we're now, January, we will be 10 years old as a firm. And I remember at the point there were just 4 owners. And we had kind of was like, oh, we won't bring on executive leadership. And 2 years ago, we brought in another executive leader. And for a while, I was like, does that mean that the owners, we can't handle it? Does that mean we can't, we don't think we have the capacity or whatever? And the reality was we did need that. We did need that extra strength. And we did need the time for us to actually allow someone else to do so that we could think and pause. And I charge everyone that's watching, and I think my colleagues would do the same. Some of the best places of strategic alignment is pausing, right? It's taking the moment, it's reevaluating. And sometimes that small moment allows you to advance further than you could have ever done just going. Our bodies, our temples are designed that there is a respite period and then there is a movement period. At night, scientifically, it's proven. You look at a Mayo data and all the research that the body literally heals itself at night, right? So that pause is necessary for advancement, for strengthening. And so I feel very passionate about that. And I think that's one of the conversations, one of the stigmas we need to defeat, that if you aren't advancing and moving forward, you're not doing something.
Being stagnant is not always a bad thing. Sometimes it helps us, get into that space of being able to overcome. Stacey, talk to us a little bit about that, because I know that most of us, because of where we are in our life, have done this faith over fear. Sometimes we don't realize that doubt and fear are just a part of the process of being able to advance yourself, because it does cause you to stop and grow and take an accounting of what you're all about as an individual. Talk to us about that, Stacey.
Yeah, you gotta deal with that fear, and you also have to just have an awareness of the things that you're fearful of, because it don't always come out just right in your face. Like, I'm scared of making my next move. It can be in your subconscious mind that you're not making that next move, and you're trying to figure out why. And it's really because you're about to go into something different, some change, some whatever, and you just haven't recognized that it's not that you can't do it. It's just that you're fearing the unknown. You're fearing what you can't see. I too just last night had this conversation literally with a group of colleagues, because you always just surround yourself with people who are already where you're trying to go or where you're trying to be. And at dinner last night, I'm in my 10th year of running the charter school and as the founder of the school. And they were telling me, they was like, Stacey, you know what? You're in your own way. You are in the way of your bigger vision, because the bigger vision was to have multiple schools in different states. And it was like, for 10 years, you've been doing a great job running the one school that you've opened, and you're in between trying to open a second school. And it was like, so why haven't you moved out of that position of the day-to-day and allowed someone else to get in that space and run your day-to-day operation? And I had to stop. I had to stop and reflect on that, because that constructive criticism turns out to be quite true. Like, why haven't I put a principle in place and moved myself into a different position so I can get these other projects off the ground? And so the last thing they said is like, you do a lot of stuff, but you're not Superwoman. You really need to think about that. And so the hardest thing is to look within and say, how do I know when I'm in my own way? So I'm going to make some moves to what my colleagues told me, because that's exactly right. I got bigger projects to do and I'm standing in fear. What's stopping me from doing that?
Absolutely. Dr. Jennifer, talk to us about that, because in your work, Next is Now, we're like, what you say? How does that work, and what does that look like sometimes when we are just like paralyzed, by the possibility and the potential of being great?
A lot of people, a lot of us suffer from imposter syndrome, and Next is Now is about recognizing where you are, where you were trying to go, where you dreamed about going is right now. We don't have the luxury of time. It used to be that, we may, tomorrow may not come. Well, you know what? 12 minutes from now may not come. So what are we waiting for? I think that's something that Stacey's group was saying to her. What are we waiting for? And oftentimes, even if you have achieved so much, there is still that piece inside of you that says, am I really ready for what I know that I could do, or I believe I could do, or people are encouraging me to do, but am I strong enough? I think Corey was saying, bringing on another person, does that mean that I'm not doing what I need to do? When we come out of that space, when we overcome this imposter syndrome that we are not enough, that we are not capable enough, and remember, as I said earlier, what you have already achieved, that you have the strength pulled from that reservoir, then we're able to go so much further, so much faster. And that's what Next is Now is about. It's about overcoming doubt, overcoming the overdose of doubt that we have put on ourselves, shaking that off, and moving towards what is right now in front of us, waiting for us to put our hands on it. We're able, we're capable, we're competent, we are ready, and Next is right now. It's time for us to go for what we have always wanted to do, because if we delay it, we're delaying our next. And the people who are watching us, waiting on us, we're delaying theirs as well. And so Next is Now is about putting an overdose of doubt aside and going for the greater that's in us.
And there's a lot of great. And as Dr. Tierney, in your book, Challenged by Fear is one of the things that I gathered as I was reading. And it really took me to the space of at every level, I'm going to be challenged. But I should have this little bit of expectation of knowing I have to deal with the unknown. Talk to us about how do we overcome being challenged by fear?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I dedicate an entire chapter in the book to just talking about fear. Really, actually, there's 4 F's. Let me just back up and say this. There are 4 F's that are paramount when we're talking about leveling up: friends, fear, faith, and forgiveness. Okay. But we're just going to talk about fear right now. So when we're thinking about fear, this may sound a little sadistic, what I'm about to say, but you have to learn how to wrangle your fear. You have to learn how to make your fear push you from behind instead of stand in front of you. Whenever I'm about to embark on anything now, if I don't feel the little twinges of fear, if it doesn't make me kind of clutch my pearls, I know that it's not for me. Not because I am like, oh my gosh, I just love the adrenaline that fear gives me, but that fear reminds me that whatever this is that I'm about to step into, it's bigger than me. It's going to require me to lean on my Heavenly Father. It's going to be something that's going to stretch me. It's going to grow me. And so that fear for me now is a signal that this is something that I need to step into. Now, I'm not talking about fear of like if someone has a gun to your head or anything like that. What I'm speaking about is that spirit of fear, that fear that's telling you that you're not enough, that fear that's telling you to run and hide, that false evidence appearing real fear. That's what I'm speaking about. When you learn how to take that fear and make it be your fuel to help you go forward, you are unstoppable. And the number one way that we really learn how to wrangle that fear is really to understand and unpack that fear. What is it that I'm afraid of? Not just, okay, I'm just afraid of public speaking. No, what is up under that fear? I'm really afraid that they're going to laugh at me. Get to the root of the fear. And then when you get to the root of the fear, then we can address that root. So if I'm afraid of public speaking, because really it's not about the public speaking, it's about people are probably going to laugh at me. Well, what can I do? I can prepare. I can make sure that I'm using that fear, that fuel, that energy, and throwing it into preparing. I can make sure that my speech is together. I can make sure that I'm doing all of the necessary things so that I can present in a way that I feel my best, that I feel the most comfortable. When we just allow our fear and look at that fear and say, oh, I ain't finna do that because then fear has won. But when we see that fear and we recognize that fear and we say, okay, what do I need to do? And we lean into that fear, baby. When I tell you, sugar, there's nothing that you can't do. There's nothing that you can't do once you learn what that fear is trying to tell you. Something else that I do, I kind of put myself in fearful situations so that I can desensitize myself to the adrenaline that I feel when fear is present. About 2 years ago, I actually went and jumped out of a plane. And I did that. Well, one, I'm an adrenaline junkie. I love roller coasters and all the things. But I did that because I wanted to be able to look myself in the mirror and say, Tierney, you jumped out of a plane. So what is this thing? What is speaking at that organization? What is taking on this challenge? What is that? Because, girl, you jumped out of a plane. So putting some parameters on your fear so that when you feel that, you can look at yourself in the mirror and say, girl, you've done a lot of hard things before. Like, this is nothing, sugar. You can do this, and having that internal kind of engine that says, I guess, what was Thomas the Tank? I think I can. I think it can. Mm-hmm. I know that I can. So that fear doesn't have that power over you. So that's just kind of a 1-2 in terms of why we have to wrangle that fear and some of the ways that we wrangle that fear.
Absolutely. We're going to dive in a little bit more after the break, because oftentimes we say things like, oh, I want to do great things. I want to do more. And that is a recipe, and it's found right there in scripture. So we're going to talk about that when we come back. What does it mean when you say enlarge my territory? Yeah, everybody wants more, but nobody wants to put in the work. We'll be back after the break.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Welcome back, everybody, to A Balanced Life. And as you can see, you're getting all the tips and tools you need. Some related to balance and other related to how do you get yourself going again. Some of us are just on that train and it's humming down the track and we are good. But then there's some people who are stuck and who are stagnant. And sometimes you need to take a self-check and say, I wanted more. I requested to do better. I made promises and bargained with God and did all kinds of things, but yet we refuse to move and act. Corey, talk to us about that, because we often say, oh, if I get this, or if you give me this space, or if you give me these clients, if you give me more education, whatever it is we're bargaining for, we get it. And then we don't fulfill the promise to do the work that we said. Talk to us about that.
You know how you have something that just hits you back in the face. This is that one for me. I remember when we first, there were some things I promised God. I said, when we first get $1 million as a company, when we first get some staff, I'll do this. I'll move on this, and it comes, And then you make another excuse. And I think there are a couple points I want to address. The first point being, be careful when you ask God to enlarge your territory. Because when you ask God to enlarge your territory, you are asking God to stretch you. You are asking God to put you in positions that shall compromise what you think you know. You're asking God to take you to a place, right, where you are saying, enlarge my territory with the goodness and the challenges and the opportunities and all that comes with it. So I'm careful when people say, oh, I want this. I remember, now being a multi-million-dollar organization and having every week we bring on a new staff, and I'm now walking down halls and I don't know my team. And I never imagined that moment, right? I'm like, who is this person? Oh, we hired them last week, right? There's a point where I said, wow, this is happening. It's happening so fast. And God, I asked for all this, but goodness, like, can I manage all this? And there's a point where God says, you know what? Didn't you hire leadership? Isn't their job to also manage all of this, right? I've given you visions that you have to go for. I've given you stuff that you have to pursue. And you told me if you get this, you would do that. And so I find myself even doing what I think I heard Stacey saying is re-looking back at what the vision was and the promise was and saying, you know what? Let me do an inventory. Let me reassess, because there's always going to be something else. There's always going to be another challenge. There's always going to be a reason not to. But big faith, I heard a quote today. One of my partners is down at the Pastors and Leadership Summit with Bishop Jakes, and she sent it to the executive leadership team. And she said this. She said, Jake said it best: facts is the enemy of faith. Facts is the enemy of faith. Because when you look at all the facts that you have in front of you, automatically you're like, oh, this is my reality, right? But big faith isn't dictated on facts. It's really dictated on you stepping out of the facts and knowing what you know and whose you are, so that you can eventually achieve. And I think that's the place that I think those of faith have to come from. And just those that, even if you aren't in faith, right? If you just a big business, I remember there was a point where cash flow was, $1,000 invoice would be so impactful for the agency some years ago. Now it's like, if it ain't a $200,000, $250,000 invoice, right? It's a different mindset. And so I say this to say, I thought when I got the $250,000 invoices, I'd be like, everything will be okay. But every level requires a different test. And when you get to every level, there is a new problem. So you can't put off what you could do today.
That is so true. Dr. Jennifer, these things that we say we want and desire, we're often not positioned for them. Why is positioning important as a part of our strategy when we think about leveling up?
I'm a woman of faith. And so 2 Timothy 1:7 says, I did not give you the spirit of fear. And I'll rest it right there. It's not that he never said that fear doesn't exist. He said, I just didn't give it to you. And so when you are in a position, when you are trying to get to a different level, when you're trying to find what that next is now is for you, it's important to remember whose you are and what your motivation is. It's important to be able to keep your eyes on that prize. Corey, you said something that is very impactful. New stages require different phases of yourself. And it's not that the person or the situation may change, but the person is going to remain the same. So as using your analogy, well, $1,000 invoice yesterday was impactful, but now, your focus is on a different level of invoice, but the piece is that it's still there. So you're preparing yourself along the journey to understand what the vision was, write the vision and make it plain. Understanding where you're going and how you're going to get there, who you're surrounding yourself with. I believe that Dr. Tierney said that about the friends, but also knowing that fear is natural. Fear is going to be there. But if you are fearful all the time, if you're living in that place, then recognize that that is not the place that you're supposed to be in, because God did not give the spirit of fear. But my point in all of that is recognizing he didn't say that it didn't exist, but you have to understand he didn't give it to you. So that's when there's times when you have to take a look at where you are and reassess where you need to be.
I think that's a very valid point, because oftentimes we get into this space of saying, I don't know what my strategy should be. And so we've heard that some of our strategies, are related to one, having awareness of what is going on around you, know who you're going with, know yourself better, take your faith with you if you're a person of faith or have some type of belief system. You just can't be all out here in the world saying you want to level up and do great things when you really don't have some type of a firm foundation in which to do that. Dr. Tierney, in this whole process of talking about leveling up and getting yourself together, we have to be cautious about becoming one note. I mean, we can just Google and see that there are a whole list of musicians out there that had one-hit wonders and never heard from them again. But oftentimes in our growth and development, God stretches us and we stretch ourselves, and people around us stretch us to the point of saying, there's more to you, and I need to see all those layers of the onion. Can you bring them? And sometimes we're like, bring what? Because we're clueless about who we were created to be. Talk to us about getting into that space and positioning to be great.
Absolutely. And this is why you have to understand that leveling up is a process. Part of the I guess the biggest disservice that social media has done is to make people think that leveling up, you do that overnight. Like I just woke up one day and like, boom, business. Or what Corey was talking about in terms of the $200,000 invoices, like that just happened overnight. Like it is a process. And the reason why it's a process and why you have to stick with the process is because you want to be able to level up and maintain, not just get there and then not have the character, the stamina, the discipline, the skill set to be able to maintain that new level. So that's why you see people going up and coming back down and going back up and coming back down, because they're trying to abort the process. But the process is critical. One of the things of what we were talking about of people saying, well, when I get this and when I get that, the reason why we get caught into that is because, like I just said, we're trying to abort the process, and we're thinking that once I get that new thing, once I reach this dollar amount, once I get this many clients, then it would be easier. Sugar, newsflash. It's not easy. Leveling up is not easy. There is nothing easy about it. If you're doing it right, it's going to be difficult because that's part of the process. It's helping you to become. It's helping you to become whoever you need to be on that level. And I'm not talking about like not keeping it real and like changing your whole persona, anything like that. It's helping you to become more of who you already are. It's helping you to tap into all of those gifts and talents and characteristics that God put on the inside of you. It's helping to prune out of you all of those things that will help to destroy your level. It's helping to prune out those people that cannot go with you. So you have to stay with the process and understand that where you are at the process right now, you have everything that you need for right where you are. And it's your job to use the tools that you have to get what you want. Shout out Players Club. Use what you got to get what you want, without thinking that if I had this other thing, then I would be better off. Because Biggie told us more money, more problems. You're just going to have a different problem. You're going to have a different tax bill. You're going to have a different level of situations that you have to navigate. And when you try to skip the process, when you try to skip out on those difficult conversations, when you try to skip out on those tough moments, then you won't have what you need in order to maintain this new level and maintain the challenges of this new level. So don't get so focused on the blessing that you forget that for every blessing, there's a burden. There's a backside of the blessing. And this process is preparing you, yes, to hold the blessing, but also to be able to navigate the burden that comes along with it.
That's significant, because when I'm listening to everything that you all are saying, and I heard Corey, I heard Stacey talk about this 10-year process, and in relationships and marriage, I was like, oh, there's this 7-year itch. Sometimes you get there, sometimes you don't. But in business, it's that 10-year mark, and people are like, oh, it took you 10 years to get this dollar amount. Oh, it took you 10 years to get your own building. Oh, it took you 10 years to write a book. Let me tell you, there's growth in that 10 years. And I'm gonna ask Stacey this question as she prepares as a businesswoman to open a high school. There's something that happened during that 10-year period that you now know is going to sustain you for this new venture. Talk to us about some of the growth nuggets that you've gotten for waiting, because there's a reason why you had to wait and needed to wait. So talk to us about that.
Yeah, the reason is because I had to fail. I had to fail continuously so that I can learn lessons, so that now that I'm moving into the high school, I'm taking a whole different approach. When I did the charter school, that was my first time. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just doing. I had big dreams, big visions, and I was just moving forward. And little things like from hiring contractors to do the work. You go out and you're building these partnerships with people, and somebody take advantage of you. So you learn that. So now that I'm looking for contractors for the high school, I know the questions to ask. I know what to look for. So I'm like, oh, you can get me one time. Shame on me. You get me twice. Or shame on you, shame on me the second time. So I think you have to wait so that you can build your character. It was a lot of character changes that I went through in the 10 years. I speak different, I listen different. I hear things that I didn't hear the first time because I was so excited about the journey. I was so excited about whatever. I was just voluble. So now my ear is a different ear as I go through it the second time. So for me, the 10 years was about improving me, making me a stronger person so that I can be able to hold both at the same time and not be taken advantage of, and not, allow one to fall while I'm moving the next one. So time is for your personal growth.
Time is for your personal growth. I hope y'all heard that, because you're waiting and waiting and waiting, and you thinking it's never going to come, but time is for your personal growth. When we come back after the break, I'm going to ask our guests to give us some of those wisdom keys that they've learned on their journey. We'll be back in a moment after the break.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Welcome back, everyone, to A Balanced Life. And my, oh my, what a rich show we have today. No matter how much time you put in the game, I'm going to bring the family back in so we can have some roundtable, robust conversation, because I know you guys have some wisdom for our audience. I'm going to start with Dr. Jennifer. Jennifer, tell them what they need to know. Whatever's on your heart, how do people do what they need to do to get where they've got to go?
Stop thinking that persons are extraordinary. If you see someone who is, on a screen or doing something that you're just praying that one day you can do, stop thinking that there's something special about them that's not special about you. God just doesn't work that way. He doesn't pick one and say, this one can do this one and this one can do that one. They're not extraordinary. Sometimes some of us, we're all ordinary. We just go and do extra. So there's some extra things that we have to do to get to certain places. So don't succumb to the idea that you don't have it and you can never get it. You can. You have to pursue and you have to recover all sometimes. And so take that opportunity, but never, ever, ever think that there's somebody who's more, that God has given them more than they've given you. We all have the ability and you should go for
it. Absolutely. Who's next?
Stop thinking that you are not enough. Just like Dr. Jennifer just said, you have everything you need within you. Once you start believing in yourself, regardless of what other people around you believe, if you believe that you can do whatever you just dreamt, just get up and start doing it. Just keep moving.
And if I can just jump right in behind that, this is why it's important. Y'all hear me say this all the time. Know who you are. It's not, we're picking ourselves apart and thinking that, oh, I'm not as special as them, because we don't know who we are. We don't know our gifts and talents and characteristics. Am I going to go and open a charter school like Stacy? No, absolutely not. But I am the best life coach on this side of glory, because I know who I am. So when you tap into who you are, then you'll know exactly what it is that you have been uniquely designed to do, what God is calling you to do, your space in this earth, your purpose, and you can occupy that in full confidence, not because it looks like somebody else, not because you're comparing what you have to theirs, because you are being fully, authentically you, and that's all that you can be. And then watch yourself level up over and over and over again from that place.
I love that. I think that's 100% right. It is, I think, simply put, what everyone is saying is cancel that spirit of comparison. It is the most dangerous, dominant devil that stops people from getting to where they need to be. I remember early on in my business career, I was so like, oh, what are people going to think? And how are they going to wonder? And, you know, they're buying houses and they're moving this. And I look at our growth, and God gave me his timing and not my timing. And because he gave me his timing, I see his truth and the splendor of his glory. And I tell you every day, stay tuned to your God and not to the glitter and the glamour of everything else. When you get that spirit of comparison, that's all you see. And you become a copy of something. But after I photocopy a picture too many times, it loses its luster. So I say stay true to you.
Okay, so let's unpack this for a second, because each of you said something that's very critical to, we always say, oh, there doesn't need to be another. And you can put whatever career or whatever's in there. Oh, there doesn't need to be another coach. Doesn't need to be another person becoming an entrepreneur. Doesn't need to be another preacher. Doesn't need to be another hairstylist or salon down the street. But oftentimes we forget that we are uniquely gifted and wonderfully made. And no matter how many times people try to do what you do, they can never do it like you do it. Give our audience some words to level up in thinking that it's not for them, because they've let people talk them out of the very thing that they know they heard that they were supposed to be doing, and they just keep putting it on the back burner, on the back burner, on the back burner. How do we get out of that space of letting people talk us out of living our dreams?
Go to the grocery store.
Do what?
Go to the grocery store. When you go in the grocery store and you go down the bread aisle, Wonder Bread, Nature's Own, Publix brand, the kind that's got the protein in it. There's not just one kind of bread. They got a whole aisle of bread, sweet Hawaiian rolls, hot dog buns, hamburger buns. It's all different types. It's all different shapes. It's all different sizes. It's all different price points. Wheat bread, white bread. But it's all bread. Okay. So yes, there may be 1,001 life coaches, amazing life coaches, but I still say I'm the best one on this side of glory because I know who I came to serve. I know that when my client walks down the aisle, they're going to pick me up off the shelf because I speak directly to them. That doesn't mean that someone else isn't an amazing coach. It just means that I'm their type of bread, you know? And so when you get into that space, take your behind to the grocery store and walk down the bread aisle and just look at all of the variety that's there. The hot dog buns don't get jealous of the hamburger buns. They serve two different purposes. So don't get into that comparison piece and putting your gifting, your calling, your talents, what God told you to do on the back burner, just because you don't look like somebody else. Exactly. There is a person, there is a company, there is a child that needs you, that needs your voice, that needs your personality, that needs to hear it in the way that only you can say it. So let that thing out. However you say it, if you got a nice country twang like I do, and I'm gonna say sugar and throw it out there that way, if you like to roll your neck with it, if you like to be a little hood with it, if you're gonna take it to the boardroom with it, be you, because there is somebody that needs to hear it in the way that you say it. It doesn't matter how many people saying it, they need to hear you say it. So go to the grocery store.
What you're saying too is, even in the grocery store, if you're using the bread analogy, they even repackage themselves and rebrand themselves quite often. So as you develop into who you are going to be, the person that you were yesterday is not going to be the person you are tomorrow. Okay. And embracing that that change, that evolution, and letting people see it and watch you experience helps them along their journey. So you have to be bold enough to be able to be that bread, to then be rebranded, to be a better bread. And not being ashamed of showing your process. There have been some ups and downs in everybody's life who was on this panel. And a lot of us have had the audacity to show people, not only did I experience it, I survived it, and so can you. I love the fact that, Dr. Tierney, I can be Bugetto, I can be a boardroom. I can be whatever I need to be for whomever I have been placed in front of, so that I can feel that I'm doing what God has said me to do. Because at the end of the day, we all have to be able to sleep at night. The same way that I will speak to somebody to encourage somebody else, at the same time, baby, I am encouraging me. And that allows me to go on and do something greater. So I think that we have to remember, as I said earlier, remember the successes that you had, so that you can be bold enough to embrace the successes that are coming. But there, and I believe that was Stacy, or apologize if I'm not getting the right credit, who said, in the process of becoming who you're going to be, you have to always, please, y'all, and to the audience, remember that you have survived a lot. Sometimes we have the problem of forgetfulness. We won't remember, maybe I did something right here, but maybe you did a lot, right? And you have to own that, so that you can go forth and you can continue to conquer, because that's what this thing is about. And conquering together, conquering with the village that is worthy of hearing your testimony, because everybody who's around you doesn't need to hear and experience what you've been through. So be selective as well, because yeah, I'm gonna leave that right. That's probably another show.
Yes.
I absolutely love it. So let's switch for just a second, because I do want to ask. So we do suffer from not being okay with not being for everybody. And I have to tell you, coaching my clients, that's the hardest thing for them. Well, what if they don't walk through my doors? What if I'm not blah, blah, blah? You're right. And I will tell everybody, I'm not for everybody, and I'm okay with that. Corey Briscoe, how do you shake that off?
I think a lot of time that comes from a lack mentality, right? It comes from the mentality that we're concerned that if they don't come to me, then I won't get another, right? But when I change my mindset that what is for me is for me, when I change my mindset that he has designed perfectly a path for me and laid out exactly where I'm going to be at what time, it's easy for me to say, if this didn't work, he closed the door. If I'm not in that mindset, I look at there's an inferiority or there's something wrong with me, instead of saying he designed it this way, right? And I think that is so important to know. I think that's the defining factor. I think even in my own personal journey, when I realized that he was closing the door and it had nothing to do with me, now when it happens, I mumble under my breath, thank you, Father. Thank you. I literally pause in that moment and say, thank you for the closed door. Thank you for the closed door. Because I'm telling you this, I'm taking my whole staff to the grocery store, like Dr. T said, because let me tell you, you got to know who you are.
Yeah, that's it. Walk that bread out. Say thank you, Jesus. Walking bread out. Thank you, Jesus.
I think that is so important. Stacey, anything you'd like to add to that? Because sometimes we're not okay with not being okay with people not being okay with us.
Yeah, I think I passed that hurdle a few years ago. I used to worry about people, but now I really don't have time for that. So I think it's just like all my colleagues said. Once I figured out what my gifts and talents were and I found my niche, I just started working in that direction. And Corey, you're right. That was the hardest lesson for me when doors used to close or people used to leave. I used to sit around and think and feel guilty. What is that? Why did that happen? Now I'd be like, Lord, you must see something that I don't see yet. So I'd be like, thank you. Glad they're gone. Don't worry about it. And then usually if I be very intentional and very present in my moment, days later, I'll start to see the reason why they were removed from me or why that door was closed. So yeah, it's about just letting go and letting God, especially when you get to certain levels.
Mm-hmm. All of this is so very, very true. And if we get to that space, that's where we can tell real maturity has come, individually and collectively, because we also keep people from walking down those pathways themselves, because we're like, hey, let me just stop you for a second, share a few things that you need to know, and hopefully it will encourage you, because there are going to be days where we're just like, okay, whatever. And I'm okay with whatever, because now I know that I'm in a space that I want doors to close that are not for me, because I don't want to spend wasting time going down a pathway that was never meant for me. But when we're bargaining all the time, if you do this, God, and if you do that, or so-and-so, if you can get me this hookup and this, that, and the other. And then it's like, I really didn't need that. And just think of all the time that so many people have wasted. We're closing out our segment today. And when we come back, I'll give my reflections after the break.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Welcome back, everybody, to A Balanced Life. And as you can tell, the ABL Village has spoken. There are some things that are going to be going on in your life as you try to level up that are not going to be for you. And we're encouraging you as well as challenging you to say that it's time to be okay with other people not caring for who you are as a brand, as an individual, as a person. You are uniquely gifted and wonderfully made. And the moment that you stop allowing other people to influence and encourage what you know you're supposed to be doing, that'll be the moment that doors will open, that things from heaven will just fall down in your space, and you will have this sense of peace and a purpose and clarity that you are now ready to not only level up, but maintain that level as you go to a different level. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Bye now.